I killed my boyfriend. His name was Kevin, and I loved him more than anything. We'd been together for 2 wonderful years, and I knew that he was the one. Sure, we had our share of arguments. He was a struggling actor, while I made all the money. That made him feel self-conscious and emasculated. Other than that, though, we were very happy. At the beginning of the year, my boss pulled me aside and said that I was on track to be promoted to COO by the end of summer. That meant extra time in the office, but it also meant a lot more money. I couldn't say no. I went home and told Kevin. He congratulated me, but I could tell he was upset. He hadn't landed an acting gig in months while I was excelling. We didn't argue or anything, but he started acting colder around me. For the next few weeks, I was working all the time, and when I was at home, Kevin was either moody or clingy. Most nights, I just wanted to relax with him and vent about my day, but he wouldn't listen. Slowly, the stress got to me. If Kevin had been more supportive, I wouldn't have felt so overwhelmed. I kept everything bottled up, and that began to affect my work performance. I started making mistakes with my reports. I was forgetting things. My boss definitely noticed. He didn't say anything, but I could tell he was rethinking that promotion. Things got really bad during a quarterly presentation in front of our investors. I was in the middle of a PowerPoint when my brain completely blanked. I didn't even know where I was. My coworker had to jump in and take over. I was mortified, and honestly, I was scared too. My memory issues were getting worse by the day. I went home early, and for the first time in a long time, Kevin was supportive. He listened to everything I said and held me as I cried. "It's okay, baby. You're just stressed out. You can't handle all these new responsibilities, but I'll always be here to help you." To cheer me up, he suggested that we do a game night, just the two of us. We used to host game nights all the time before I got busy with work, so it was the perfect idea. He brought out a bowl and filled it with little slips of paper, each one with some stupid dare. We played a mini version of cornhole, and every time one of us scored a point, the other had to pick a dare from the bowl. It was so much fun. It was just like the old times. All my work embarrassment disappeared. I don't remember all the dares that we had to do, just dumb stuff, but after a while, Kevin drew a paper that said, "Hide in your suitcase for 1 minute." I thought it was the funniest dare. A year before, I bought this massive suitcase for my work trips, and we always joked that I could fit my entire family inside. So I pulled out the suitcase, and Kevin climbed in. I zipped him in and then left the room to grab my phone so I could set the timer for 1 minute. When I got my phone, I saw a bunch of texts from my coworkers asking if I was okay. I spent a long time reading them all, and I was really touched. No one seemed upset at me, not even my boss. They were just worried. I responded to each one, assuring them that I was better now. I even promised to take a day off from work so that I could go to the doctor and get myself checked out. Maybe there was some kind of medical problem causing my memory to lapse. Feeling both relieved and stress-free, I brushed my teeth and went to bed. Since I was taking the day off tomorrow, I switched off my alarm. I slept in the next morning. It was the most peaceful sleep I'd had in a while. Then I fixed myself breakfast and got ready for the day. I headed to the hospital for a checkup. The doctor ran some blood tests and looked me over. He noticed that my eyes were a little foggy and I had a slight limp. When the results came in, he told me that I had chemicals in my system, lots of them. I didn't understand at first. I wasn't on any medication besides birth control. "This explains your memory lapses. We're lucky that we caught them in time that we did. It looks like you've been mixing medications for weeks. If you continue with these dosages, you'd cause permanent damage to your brain." The doctor explained my results, and I pieced everything together. Kevin was doing this to me. My memory lapses were because of him. He wanted to sabotage me, maybe even get me fired. The good news was that I would go back to normal once everything got out of my system. I'd be my old high-achieving self again. I was both relieved and furious. How could Kevin do this to me? As soon as I got back home and confronted him, that's when I remembered the suitcase. Oh my God. Kevin was still inside the suitcase. I ran up to it and opened the suitcase. and Kevin's limp body flopped out. His face was blue, and all the veins in his eyes had popped. He was dead, suffocated. So yes, I killed my boyfriend. I had a lot of explaining to do when the police arrived, though the prescription bottles in Kevin's desks and the statements from my doctor did a lot to prove my innocence. I didn't get arrested, but I still feel guilty. Stupid Kevin did this to himself.
I never should have taken the job at Newton Hospital. I'd just gotten out of nursing school and I had plenty of job offers back home, but I wanted to try something new. I grew up in Portland, and I always wanted the chance to make a difference in a small town. Newton seemed like a perfect place. And the lady who interviewed me on the phone said that they desperately needed someone like me. So, I packed my bags and I moved to Arizona without ever seeing my new hospital. The photos on their website made it seem small but well maintained. When I arrived, I realized that those photos must have been very out of date. The place was falling apart. All of the fluorescent lights were either broken or flickering. The equipment was outdated, and the rooms were dusty. Outside of the small staff, who all walked around as if they were court-ordered to be there, the whole place looked like it had been abandoned. The head nurse met me at the door and gave me a tour. Her name was Jessica. I recognized her voice from the phone interview. Totally normal, but she had one of those stern old lady faces that seemed physically unable to smile. She answered all of my questions, but she refused to engage in any small talk. Just bad vibes all around. 30 minutes into my new job, and I was already regretting the move. When she finished the tour, she gave me one final bit of advice that really creeped me out. Don't go outside on your own. When your shift is over, run straight to your car. I asked her why, and she said something about this being an unsafe part of town. Well, my first week there was difficult but uneventful. We were always busy, and our patients were all low income and pretty desperate. I was too tired and overworked to realize how miserable I was. But, for the record, I did a great job. I treated every patient with respect, even the most unhinged. We had a homeless man come in a couple of times, clearly on some kind of stuff, and I was the only one who could talk him down. Everyone else just ignored him. My coworkers were all extremely jaded. They seemed worn down by the job, something that I swore would never happen to me. Then, something changed. I was alone in the lobby, working the night shift, when I saw someone outside the window. Our parking lot lights weren't working, of course, so I couldn't tell who it was. All I saw was movement in the darkness. I got closer to get a better look. Oh my God! Someone threw a brick right at me. It missed, thank God, but I had no doubt that whoever threw that was aiming for me. I might have screamed. I don't remember. Jessica came running. She saw me standing there, shaking. She saw the brick at my feet. Stay away from the windows from now on, please. There was no concern on her face. She acted as if thrown bricks was some regular occurrence. She didn't even call the police or send someone outside to check. I tried to focus on the rest of my rounds, but my hands wouldn't stop shaking. Then, the next night, when I was once again stuck on the night shift, it happened again. It wasn't a brick this time. It was an actual person standing outside the window staring at me. I saw his silhouette, but not his face. He wasn't moving. Then, he punched the window once. I ran out of the room and went to tell Jessica. She wasn't in her station. I looked around for the other nurses, but I was the only one there. Just me and our sleeping patients. For the next half hour, I walked around the quiet hospital, really on edge. Maybe it was in my mind, but I felt like the man outside was following me. I saw shapes in the corner of my eye. I heard footsteps. I was this close to hyperventilating when I rounded a corner and someone jumped out in front of me. Jesus! It was just Jessica. I tried to explain what had happened, but she cut me off. It's time I told you about Nancy. Without any emotion in her voice, she told me about a former nurse named Nancy. She was the woman I replaced. Apparently, Nancy was a lot like me. Optimistic, always trying to stay positive. One night, she checked in 2 patients who had just been in a car accident. The husband was okay, but the wife died on the table. It wasn't Nancy's fault, obviously. The woman had internal bleeding. Well, the man blamed Nancy for his wife's death. He started following her around, terrorizing her. Then, a few months back, he snuck into the hospital and he forced her into one of the MRI machines. Once she was inside, he moved the furniture to trap her and then left an out-of-service sign on the door. When a janitor found her 3 days later, she was dead. The man is in jail now, and Nancy still roams these halls. I've seen her, and now you have too. I didn't believe in ghosts. No rational person in the medical field would. But her story did make sense. It sounded like the man who killed Nancy was back, and now he had his sights on me. I'm calling the police. The police can't stop ghosts. I pulled out my phone anyway. Jessica angrily snatched it out of my hands. That was the first time I saw her show any emotions at all. She put my phone in a drawer under the front desk and locked it. She said that I could pick it up when my shift was over. I pretended to go along with that, but of course I didn't. My safety was on the line. There was a very real lunatic lurking in the hospital, and I needed to protect myself. I went back to the hallway to check on my patients. And when Jessica wasn't looking, I snuck into her office to use her phone. I didn't turn on the light because I didn't want her to see me. I searched around her desk in the darkness until I found the phone. Before I could make a call, something moved from the corner of the room. Hello, Nancy. Oh God, it was him. He was standing right behind me. Not a ghost at all. He placed his hands on my shoulders, but I twisted out of his grip and ran out of the room. As I hurried down the hallway, I screamed for help. None of the patients did anything, and I didn't see Jessica or any of the doctors anywhere. The man was right behind me now, a crazed smile on his face. Without looking, I ran into the first door I reached. It was the MRI room. I tried to hold the door shut, but the man was too strong. He violently pulled it open and dove at me. I fell to the floor and he pinned me down. He pulled a metallic object from his pocket. A scalpel. Help! Don't scream, Nancy. It'll all be over soon. He called me Nancy again. He raised the scalpel, ready to jab it into my chest. And then he froze. He looked over his shoulder at the MRI machine. What? You're not supposed to be here. It sounded like he was talking to someone else in the room, but no one was there. Then he stood up and walked towards the machine. You're not real. You're... I still didn't see who he was talking to. I watched from the floor as the man stumbled backwards, as if someone had pushed him. Then his head swung to the side, as if he'd been punched. Then, craziest of all, the fabric of his shirt lifted up, as if someone was pulling him toward the machine. But no one was there. I swear that we were alone. I watched the man dive into the MRI, but it looked like he was pulled inside. Once he disappeared into the machine, he didn't come out. Nancy, please, let me out! Nancy, please! I could hear him pounding against the walls and screaming. I ran out of there so damn fast. Jessica was waiting for me in the lobby. I guess she had heard me scream and had already called the police. When they arrived, we took them back to the MRI room. The man was already dead. Someone had turned on the equipment, causing the metal scalpel to shoot out of his hand and skewer him in the face. I quit my job that night. I'm not a nurse anymore. I'm a waitress back in Portland. And every time I think about what happened that night at Newton Hospital, I think about Nancy. I swear she pulled him into that machine. There's no other explanation. I never thought I'd end up hating Mark as much as I did. We started out like any other couple, high school sweethearts who stuck together through college. Him with his engineering degree, and me climbing the corporate ladder in marketing. But over the years, he just shrank in my eyes. Became this puny, immature version of the guy I once thought was my forever. It wasn't one big thing. It was 1,000 little ones that piled up until I couldn't breathe around him anymore. Take that time last summer when we were at my company's barbecue. I had just gotten promoted, and my boss, Alex, was there. Tall, confident, the kind of man who commanded a room without even trying. Mark showed up late, wearing that stupid graphic tee with a cartoon robot on it, like he was still in his dorm room. He spent the whole afternoon cracking lame jokes about engineers being better than marketers. But they fell flat, and everyone just politely laughed. Later, when Alex pulled me aside to congratulate me privately, I felt alive for the first time in months. Mark? He was off playing cornhole with the interns, yelling like a kid when he won. "Babe, did you see that? I'm unstoppable!" he shouted across the lawn. I forced a smile, but inside I was cringing. Puny. That's the word that kept echoing in my head. Or that weekend that we tried to fix the leaky faucet in our apartment. I suggested calling a plumber, but no, Mark had to prove that he was handy. He spent hours under the sink, tools scattered everywhere, cursing under his breath. "I got this, Jess. Just hand me the wrench." "No, the other one!" he'd snap, his voice whiny when things went wrong. In the end, he flooded the bathroom and we had to pay double for an emergency repair. Meanwhile, Alex had just renovated his entire condo by himself. Told me all about it during one of our late-night work sessions. That night, after Mark finally gave up and slumped on the couch with a beer, whining about how plumbing is rigged, I texted Alex. We met up at his place, and let's just say he knew exactly how to handle things. No fumbling, no excuses. Left me breathless. Mark never suspected a thing. He was dumb enough playing video games that he didn't even notice that I was gone for hours. By the time we planned that hiking trip in the Adirondacks, I'd been with Alex for 6 months. Alex made me feel desired, powerful. He'd pin me against his office desk after hours, whispering how I was the smartest woman he'd ever met, how he couldn't get enough of me. "You're wasted on that boy," he'd say, and he was right. Mark had become this clingy shadow, always needing reassurance, always making everything about his insecurities. "Do you still love me, babe?" he'd ask out of nowhere, like a lost puppy. Made my skin crawl. I decided on the hike that it was time to end it. But I didn't want to be the villain. No, I needed an excuse. Something dramatic that would make breaking up seem inevitable. Maybe even his fault. We'd been arguing more lately. He accused me of working too much, of drifting away. If I could orchestrate something where he got hurt, nothing fatal, just enough to scare him off, I could play the concerned girlfriend who realizes that she's outgrown him. And that's when the idea hit me. Hornets. I'd read online about nests in the woods, how a wrong step could unleash hell. Allergic reactions, swelling, pain. If Mark got stung bad enough, I could rush him to the ER and then drop the bomb. This trip showed me we're just not compatible anymore. You're too reckless. Perfect cover. No one would blame me. Especially not my girlfriends back home who had been urging me to dump him for ages. "Jess, you're 28. Successful, hot. You deserve better than that man-child," they'd say over brunch. We drove up early that Saturday morning in October of 2025. Mark was excited, bouncing in the passenger seat like a kid on a field trip. "This is gonna be epic, babe. Fresh air, just you and me. No phones, no distractions." Yeah, sure. Just don't wander off like last time. He laughed it off. Come on, that was funny. I thought I saw a deer. We parked at the trailhead, slung on our backpacks. Mine light with just water and snacks. His loaded with all sorts of gadgets, including that bear spray canister that he insisted on bringing. You never know, he'd said when packing. Bears, or worse. I rolled my eyes behind his back, puny and paranoid. The trail was rugged, winding through dense forest with roots snaking across the path. I led the way, my eyes scanning the ground for anything that looked like a nest, those papery gray mounds half buried in dirt. I'd done my research on my phone the night before, deleting the history so Mark wouldn't see. "How's work been?" he asked from behind, his voice echoing a bit in the quiet woods. "Fine, busy. Alex has me on a big campaign." "Oh yeah? That guy seems intense. You two getting along okay?" I smirked to myself. If only he knew how well. He's great. Knows what he wants. We hiked for about an hour, chatting sporadically. Mark kept trying to hold my hand, but I pulled away, saying the terrain was too uneven. "You're being weird today. Everything all right?" I turned to face him, forcing a smile. "Just tired, I guess. Work stress." He nodded, buying it like always. "Well, this hike will fix that. Hey, remember our first trip like this? Back in college? We got lost and ended up spending time under that waterfall." I cringed inwardly. That memory used to be sweet. Now it just highlighted how stuck we were. "Yeah, I remember. We were kids then." He frowned. What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. Let's keep going." Another half hour in, I spotted it, a suspicious bulge in the earth near a fallen log, buzzing faintly if you listened close. My heart raced. This was it. I slowed my pace, pretending to tie my shoe. "Hey Mark, check out that log up ahead. Looks like a good spot for a break." He bounded forward without a second thought, his boots crunching leaves. "Cool, yeah, I'm starving." And then it happened. His foot came down right on the nest. A low hum turned into a roar as hornets exploded from the ground, at least 50, swarming like angry black dots. Mark yelped, swatting at them. "What the? Oh, Jess, run!" I froze for a second, watching as they dive-bombed him. More pouring out. Another 50. Easy. It was terrifying, even for me. "Jess, help!" But I didn't move closer. This was my plan, after all. Let him get stung a few times. Swell up. Freak out. Then I'd save him just enough to look heroic, but damaged enough to justify the split. "Mark! Oh my God!" I shouted, my voice laced with fake panic. Inside, a twisted thrill bubbled up. Finally, something to shake him off. He was defenseless, miles from help, no cell signal. I knew he didn't have an EpiPen. We'd joked about his mild allergies before. As the swarm thickened, he dropped to his knees, covering his head. "It hurts! They're everywhere!" I took a step back, heart pounding. Part of me wondered if this would go too far, if anaphylactic shock hit hard. But then he remembered the bear spray. Fumbling in his pack, he yanked it out, popped the cap, and unleashed a cloud of mist. The hornets scattered, some dropping midair, others veering off. He sprayed wildly, coughing through the fumes, but it worked. The swarm thinned, retreating back to their ruined nest. He stood there, panting, face red, but unstung, not a single welt. "Holy crap, that was close," he gasped, looking at me with wide eyes. "You okay? They didn't get you, right?" I blinked, stunned. My plan failed. He was fine. More than fine. He looked almost heroic. Bear spray in hand like some wilderness warrior. "Yeah, I'm good. I'm good," I stammered, forcing concern. That was insane. You sure you're not hurt?" He shook his head, grinning now that the adrenaline kicked in. Nah, the spray did the trick. Man, I feel alive. "Come here, babe." He pulled me into a hug, but I stiffened. All that build-up and nothing. No excuse, no drama. We hiked back in silence, mostly. Him recounting the story like it was an adventure. I mean, 50 hornets and then 50 more. Terrifying, but I handled it, right? Right. I echoed, my mind racing. By the time we reached the car, I knew I couldn't wait anymore. The affair with Alex was too real, too consuming. That night, back at the hotel, as Mark showered off the sweat, I packed my things quietly. When he came out, I was sitting on the bed. "We need to talk," I said. He froze. "About what?" "Us. This isn't working. Today, it just showed me how different we are. You're still that immature guy who jumps into danger without thinking. I need someone stable, mature." "What? Jess, come on. The Hornets weren't my fault. I saved us." "You almost got us killed. And honestly, I've been feeling this for months. We're over." He begged, tears in his eyes. "Please, don't do this. I love you. What about all our plans?" But I was done. I left him there, drove home alone, and called Alex as soon as I had a signal. "It's over with Mark. Come over." This happened 5 years ago. It was late summer in the Pacific Northwest. I'd just moved to Seattle for a job in graphic design, feeling that mix of excitement and loneliness that comes with starting over in your late 20s. I decided to hit the trails at Cougar Mountain. Ironic name, right? To clear my head. That's where I met him, Mark. He was fiddling with his backpack at the trailhead, looking a bit lost himself. "Hey, you know if this loop is easy?" I asked, breaking the ice. I wasn't usually the type to chat up strangers, but something about his easy smile made me bold. He glanced up, eyes crinkling. "First time here, too?" "Name's Mark." "Yeah, it's supposed to be straightforward. Want company? Safety in numbers and all." We started walking, the conversation flowing like we'd known each other for years. He was a software engineer, divorced a year ago, looking for a fresh start. We talked about everything. Favorite books, bad exes, the way city life grinds you down. As the sun dipped lower, the trail got narrower, shadows stretching like fingers across the path. "Shit, did we miss the turn?" I muttered, checking my phone. No signal, of course. Mark pulled out a crumpled map. "Let's backtrack. Can't be far." But we were wrong. Night fell fast, the kind of dark that swallows you whole. Our flashlights cut thin beams through the trees, and the woods came alive with rustles and snaps. That's when the real fear crept in. We were lost, properly lost, and the temperature was dropping. "Stay close," he said, his voice low. "We'll figure this out." I nodded, my heart pounding. Not just from the hike. There was something electric about being out there with him, vulnerable and raw. We kept talking to keep the panic at bay, about our dreams, our fears. "I've always wanted to travel more," I confessed, "but life's gotten in the way." "Me too. After my divorce, I'd promised myself I'd live bigger. No more playing it safe." Halfway through what felt like an eternity, we heard it. A growl that morphed into a scream, piercing and human-like. My blood ran cold. "What was that?" I whispered, grabbing his arm. Mark froze. "I don't know. Keep moving." But it followed us, whatever it was. It shadowed our steps, that scream echoing through the trees every few minutes, like it was taunting us. Branches cracked nearby, too close for comfort. I could feel its presence. Eyes on us in the dark. It's a cougar. I've read about them. They stalk prey like this. Terror gripped me. My mind flashed to every horror story I'd heard. Women alone in the woods, never seen again. But Mark pulled me closer, his body heat seeping through my jacket. "We're in this together. I won't let anything happen to you." Adrenaline surged, and I turned to him. Our faces inches apart under the moonlight's glow. He didn't hesitate. Panting, we pulled apart, the reality slamming back. The screams hadn't stopped. If anything, they were angrier. "We have to go," Mark urged. We ran then, flashlights bouncing, hearts racing from more than fear. Somehow, we stumbled onto a service road. The cougar's cries fading behind us. Civilization loomed. A parking lot. Our cars. We collapsed against his truck, laughing hysterically, tears mixing in. "That was insane," I said, still buzzing. "Yeah," he agreed, pulling me in, "but worth it." We exchanged numbers, and that night sparked everything. Dates turned to love. Love to marriage 2 years later. But the PTSD lingered. Mild, they called it. Nights in the woods. Any rustle or distant howl, and I'm back there, heart hammering. Therapy helped, but so did Mark. He'd hold me, whisper, "We're safe now. Remember how we fought back?" Last month, my boyfriend Juan took me on a camping trip in California. Camping really isn't my thing, but I knew he wanted to go. When he's happy, I'm happy. Besides, he seemed kind of anxious when he brought it up. The trip clearly meant something to him, so I could only assume that he was going to finally propose. We parked near the ranger station and picked up a couple of maps. The ranger warned us about places to stay away from, but Juan assured him that we'd be fine. And then we started hiking. I hated it. I hated every second of it. Even though I bought the right shoes from an outdoor supply store, my feet were throbbing in pain. I needed constant breaks. I was always out of breath. And Juan just kept talking. He had all the energy in the world, and it felt like he was purposely ignoring how difficult it was for me. We'd gotten pretty high up the first mountain, and I desperately needed to sit down. I asked Juan if we could take a break now. He looked around for a while, and then said, "Yeah, this is a good spot." We were on a relatively flat area toward the top of the mountain, and had a beautiful view of the valley below. He unzipped his backpack and pulled out the tent. "You set this up, and I'll go gather firewood." I really didn't know how to pitch a tent, but at least I didn't have to stand up while I was doing it. Before he left, he sprayed me with some anti-bear spray, just in case. It smelled awful, but at least it didn't get in my eyes. I kissed him goodbye, and he told me to stay safe. By the time I finished pitching the tent, Juan still hadn't returned. I started to get a little nervous. Even though we couldn't get cell reception out here, I needed to grab my phone and see what time it was. He had to have been gone at least an hour. But when I reached into my backpack, my phone was gone. So was Juan's. He'd taken them both when he left. But why? I looked through the whole backpack, and I saw that the maps were gone too. So was our food and water. There was only one explanation. He'd left me behind. He wanted me to get lost out there. I was furious. I looked around the campsite, but there was no sign of him. I needed to get back down to the ranger station before dark, but I didn't know which direction to go in. While coming up here, Juan had purposely changed paths a couple of times. Now I knew why. At the very least, I knew that I needed to go downhill. I didn't bother bringing anything with me. I left the whole tent where it was. It was a lot easier to walk downhill. I didn't feel as sore. Of course, I was also driven by anger. By the afternoon, I felt like I'd been walking forever. I was starting to lose hope, until I saw a large man up ahead. He was leaning against a tree, but I couldn't see his face through the leaves. "Hey!" I called out as I sped up to reach him. The man turned to look at me, and I almost screamed. It wasn't a man at all. It was a bear. I stood frozen, too afraid to move. I silently prayed that the anti-bear spray would drive it away. Unfortunately, it did the exact opposite. The bear sniffed a few times, and then it went absolutely wild. It charged at me, roaring. That's when I knew the full extent of my boyfriend's plan. He hadn't just abandoned me in the wilderness. He had sprayed me with some spray that attracted bears, not repelled them. He wanted me to get eaten. And soon I would be. I kept running as fast as I could, but the bear was catching up. There was nothing I could do to stop it. Just as it swiped its claw at me, I did the only thing I could think of. I jumped off the cliff. I fell through the air, almost in slow motion, and struck the tops of trees. I felt the worst pain of my life as my body hit branch after branch during my fall. By the time I'd landed on the ground, I was unconscious from the pain. But at least the bear couldn't get me. I'm not sure how long I was passed out on the ground. Probably not too long. I woke up to a young couple standing over me. The boyfriend was gently shaking my shoulder. It took a while for my eyes to focus. "Are you okay?" the girlfriend asked. "No," I grumbled. "I just jumped off a cliff to avoid getting eaten." "By a bear?" she asked. I was in way too much pain to keep talking to these people. I told them to call the police instead of asking me all these questions. Now that we were out of the mountains and close to the ranger station, their cell phones could get enough bars to make a call. "We already called them," the man admitted, "after we saw the other person." I didn't know who they were talking about at first. I struggled to stand up. The man tried to stop me because I was pretty hurt from the fall, but with their help, I was able to stand and limp back toward the ranger station. Took only 5 minutes to get there, even though we were going at a really slow pace. The ambulance was already waiting. Someone was lying dead on the stretcher. I didn't need to see his face to know that it was Juan. He was the body that they'd found. I got closer, just to make sure. I recognized his face. Or at least, the top half. The bottom half, just below his nose, had been torn off. I couldn't stop myself from laughing at the irony. Juan had sprayed me with some chemical to attract bears, and yet he was the one to get killed by one. The last time I saw him, he was kissing me goodbye, after he'd sprayed me with the chemical. Served him right. After that, the ambulance took me to the hospital to patch me up. I'm okay now, but I still have nightmares about that forest. I will never go camping again.